Nation turns its lonely eyes to you with the news you broke yesterday that Kyrie Irving has requested, demanded, whatever word we use here, a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. What is the very latest?
Greeny, so since Irving's trade demand yesterday, the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Suns have been engaged with the Brooklyn Nets, but another team has emerged today, and that's the Los Angeles Clippers. And they've joined the pursuit of a Kyrie Irving deal. They've been in the market for a point guard. And so now you've got those four and others. I think Brooklyn, you talk to teams who talked with the Nets, and they are very much operating like a team that wants to make a trade, that is going to make a trade for Kyrie Irving ahead of Thursday's deadline. And their goal remains, I'm told, to try to get back assets, players, and if it's finding third teams, fourth teams, using draft picks from teams to go out and be able to get players to go with Kevin Durant, to try to keep this team in contention. This is a difficult threshold for them right now because Ben Simmons has not played well this season. You're trying to get value for Kyrie Irving. And again, so this is a Brooklyn team, and I think the Lakers, you've got to keep looking at LA. There's a lot of built-in factors there. LeBron James very much wants him there. The Lakers have the assets to get this done if they want, but certainly there are more than just the Lakers involved, including now the Clippers, who have joined in this pursuit today.
The Brooklyn Nets are trading Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. That's been confirmed by our Bill Ryder. The Mavs, in return, will receive Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and a package of picks in return. That haul includes a 2027 second-round pick and a first and second-round pick in 2029. The trade ends a 4-year run for Kyrie and Brooklyn, and with that, he now takes his talents out to Dallas in the West Conference to join a squad that is 6th in the Western Conference currently. You take a look at that package. Markieff Morris also will be heading to the Mavs to join forces with Kyrie and now Luka Doncic out there in Dallas. The Nets, we mentioned, in return will get Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and a few picks highlighted by that unprotected first-round selection in 2029. We mentioned Bill Ryder, so it's only right that we bring him in right now. Bill, this shocking news. We knew that Kyrie likely was going to be traded ever since he first announced that he wanted to be traded, and that news broke. Now that you see that it ends up being Dallas and not some of the others like the Lakers or the Clippers who were in the running and wanted to bring in Kyrie, what's your reaction here?
Yeah, Zach, my reaction is it's a pretty nice return for the Brooklyn Nets. I know yesterday several folks, including GMs around the NBA, were just skeptical whether, given Kyrie's struggles and difficulties and some of the issues that have made him less appealing to other teams out there, given all of that, whether Kyrie would command the kind of return that Brooklyn was certainly going to want, because they're effectively giving up on their season. It is not a bad haul for Brooklyn, given the circumstances and given the fact that Kyrie had not only said he wanted to be traded, but in the last 2 hours, the reporting had come out that he might sit if he wasn't moved. And when you're in that kind of a corner, it's sometimes hard to get what you want coming back. I think Brooklyn did that. And now the question becomes, is the juice worth the squeeze for Dallas? Sources yesterday told me they were one of the 2 or maybe 3 teams, the Lakers and maybe the Clippers, who would be interested enough to perhaps drive the price up. They've surrounded Luka Doncic with a star. He's obviously mercurial. It'll be very interesting, Zach, to see whether or not this leads to success for Dallas the rest of the way.
Yeah, we'll certainly circle back on Brooklyn and what this means for them going forward. But you look at this Dallas squad currently sitting at 28 and 26 in the Western Conference, 9.5 games back of Denver. We knew that they needed another piece. That became very apparent, especially when Luka missed some time, and you heard Jason Kidd say they need someone to step up. That was at one time Spencer Dinwiddie. But ever since losing Jalen Brunson, it seems like that they've missed him desperately. So now they get a piece like Kyrie. What can this do for Dallas?
It depends how you view Kyrie Irving. He's a litmus test. He's a Rorschach test, I should say. People see in him whatever they think about Kyrie Irving, the player and leader. I can tell you some GMs out there think that he is worth whatever difficulties come with Kyrie Irving, and some don't. I'm probably in the camp that is skeptical it's going to work out, but Zach, you hit on it. You've got another all-world scorer. You've got help for Luka Doncic, the kind of offensive help that you have to have especially when you get into playoff basketball, best of 7 series, rotations that shorten up, defenses that tend to improve, half-court offenses. You're not going to run and gun as much. And so if Kyrie can replicate not just his talent, but the success we saw him have with LeBron James in Cleveland, Dallas becomes absolutely good enough in a really crowded Western Conference, especially with the question marks around Steph Curry and his health. Dallas becomes good enough to be a real contender. We've seen Luka Doncic carry this team basically by himself. They had Brunson, but basically by himself to a conference finals. And so Kyrie Irving's addition on paper, I think it makes them a contender. The issue becomes, Zach, and the reason not as many teams were in a bidding war for Kyrie Irving as they might have been 2 or 3 years ago, if we've seen Kyrie hold his organization hostage. We've seen him miss time for a variety of reasons. And the stats are the stats. This is a Brooklyn team that has been statistically better. They've won more games when he has sat than when he has played. So it's hard to know who you're getting in Kyrie Irving, but for a team like Dallas, desperate to do something right now and to surround Luka Doncic with someone, it's a risk that makes sense.
Is it a risk that you think is going to be worth it? Kyrie's contract is up at the end of this year. Do you think he would consider re-signing there, or is this just a one half of a season opportunity for Dallas to strike gold here?
It's a great question. It's the big question. I guess there's a few answers. One, that would be quite a sizable gamble by Dallas if they don't think Kyrie was going to stick around. I was talking to a league source yesterday, literally asked him, Zach, the exact question you asked me. If Kyrie goes somewhere that's not Los Angeles, California. So Dallas was the example I used. But I said, let's say it's a Dallas or a Chicago or somewhere that we haven't had indications in the past Kyrie wants to stay. Will he stick around if he's traded there? And this league source, familiar with Kyrie's thinking and familiar with some of the teams involved, told me the view around the NBA is that Kyrie simply wants to find a place that he can win and that he can get paid. An organization that will pay him, let's say 4 years, more or less a max deal. So I would assume, Zach, that Dallas is back-channeled with Kyrie Irving and the people representing him, and that the understanding is that they will offer him some kind of a deal that he's amenable to, and that he will take that deal, which is, I guess, a long-rounded way to say, yeah, I think he will stay there. I can't imagine Dallas would have made this move if they didn't think he was going to stick around. But again, the Nets also thought they were getting something in Kyrie Irving. They didn't. We know Kyrie can change his mind. So it's an open-ended question. I think he'll stay, but you never know where Kyrie's going to be in a month or a couple months after this experience in Dallas and whether it goes well or whether it goes badly.
I think one thing that's for sure you really can't debate is that Kyrie's the top 5 point guard in this league right now when he's out there playing. How does he match up with Luka on the field? Who's going to be on the court? Who's going to be the one on the ball? How are they going to make that work? And will it result in success?
Well, I'll respectfully disagree. I think it is debatable, and I think that's the big issue with Kyrie. And again, this is me just referencing people who run NBA teams around the league, not my perspective. Some people think he's a top 5 point guard, and some people think that he's not. And I think that's part of the reason you only had 2 or 3 teams that were in the mix here. But to answer your question, if you come down, and Dallas does, on the side that this guy is that talented and is that capable, he does one of the hardest things there is to do in the NBA. He can go and get you buckets by himself, create his own space, create his own shot, break down defenses. When he's in the right spot, when he's in the right fit, especially, and we've seen this with LeBron and with Kevin Durant, when he's surrounded by another all-world player, and certainly Luka Doncic is that. The upside here, the ceiling for Kyrie Irving, is that he's more than capable of playing like a number 2 on a championship-level team. He can help, as you noted, if Luka Doncic, let's say injured, but just not having to load the minutes up on Luka. He can take 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 36 minutes in a game here or there and be the offensive focal point. He can't do it night after night after night. We've certainly seen that in Brooklyn. So it's a huge offensive help. It's a huge secondary weapon. And when we get to the postseason, because all the stats people will throw at you about Kyrie not being as effective in terms of winning over the course of his time when he's on the bench versus starting, those are all regular season stats. And even though the Nets have struggled at times in the postseason, it's a different game, as you know, Zach, in the playoffs. The ability to go out there and have one guy who can win you a game or a couple games is huge. Kyrie Irving's one of those players in the NBA. You put him with Luka Doncic, and it makes Dallas a lot more dangerous, potentially, than they were.
I just want to touch real quick on Brooklyn now, the other side of this trade. What does this mean for them going forward and the potential for KD? What happens with him now?
Yeah, another great and critical question. I mean, I don't know because the people that I've talked to don't know, but I can tell you there are some hungry GMs for talent who have been making calls and are anticipating the possibility that Kevin Durant could be available between now and Thursday's NBA trade deadline. And while the folks I've talked to aren't ruling that out, the general sense, Zach, I get around the league is that you have to get such a haul for Kevin Durant if you're going to move him. Or if Kevin Durant decides he wants to be moved, and we've already seen him make that demand before, that it might make more sense as a summer trade. You want to involve as many teams as possible. You want to get as many assets as possible. So I think it's certainly likely, I think it's certainly plausible that Kevin Durant's going to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. He's going to try to carry a team that doesn't have Kyrie Irving. Their chances are severely diminished, at least on paper, of being a contender this year. But I do think that there's a sense, in fact, I know there's a sense around the NBA, this is probably, and nobody knows, the beginning of the end of Durant's time in Brooklyn, New York, and that this summer, if he wants to move, would be the time there would be a sizable bidding war for one of the most talented players on the face of the earth.
What does it maybe say about this Nets organization that went through so much with Kyrie last season and then this season, and just this whole experiment not working out? Where do they go to from here?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I feel like I'm taking too many shots at Kyrie because there are people that would certainly sign up for Kyrie in a heartbeat, but I do think it reminds you that if you're going to take the keys to the kingdom and put them in the hands of star players, and that's the modern NBA, and I think it should be, I mean, these are the guys that really give you a chance, you have to make sure that those star players are in for the long haul and are the kind of leaders you want them to be. And Kyrie Irving was one of those guys, was instrumental, mostly along with Kevin Durant, but instrumental in decision-making and who they wanted in, who was going to be the coach, who wasn't going to be the coach. And I think the lesson is be careful who you trust with your organization. I can tell you this, Zach, if you're Sean Marks, you're the GM in Brooklyn. You go back several years. He had taken one of the worst teams in terms of how they were positioned for the future. The draft picks they had and really didn't have the hole they were in going all the way back to the Kevin Garnett trade and company with the Celtics. He dug them out of it. He built a really interesting young team. They had something that was probably trending toward really successful. And they did what any GM in the NBA would do. They got Kyrie, they got Kevin Durant. They were a shoe size, the proper shoe size away from being in a conference finals or maybe further, maybe NBA champions, and it didn't work out. So if you're Brooklyn, you probably have to take stock of the gamble you took the last few years on these two stars. And when you reset, if Sean Marks is given the opportunity to do that by his owner, you probably have to understand that next time around, you want to make sure if you're going to allow superstar players to make decisions that they're in it for the long haul and the leverage they throw around is for the best interest of the Nets and not just what they want to do in the short term.
Crazy roller coaster out there in Brooklyn. You figure just a few weeks ago, back when KD was still healthy, they were a team that was looking like they were going to challenge the Celtics for the best record out there in the Eastern Conference, and now they break things up with Kyrie being traded out to the Dallas Mavericks. He's our Bill Ryder. Thank you very much for talking some NBA breaking news on this Sunday afternoon. Kyrie headed to Dallas. You see his career, team number 4 now on tap. Best seasons of his career, point-wise, came when he was with the Nets, averaged 27.1, averaging 27.1 again this season, and now he heads out to Dallas to team up with Luka Doncic, a team that's in 6th place in the Western Conference, 9.5 games back of the Denver Nuggets. Brooklyn looking for